My name is Kim Heil. I'm the Associate Artistic Director of the O Globe. Welcome to the Insight Seminar for the Janeiad. And we are here because of the generosity of Carl and Vicki Zeiger, so I'd love to acknowledge them if they're in the audience. I don't see them, but of course, we send them our love. So next to me, as you can see, are two very wonderful, esteemed artists who we at the Globe are so proud to have as part of our artistic family. And you may recognize at least one of them, who has been a frequent collaborator at the Old Globe. Anna Ziegler has had plays premiering at the Globe, including The Last Match and The Wanderers, directed by Barry Edelstein, and now this. And I also had the pleasure of producing, actually, over at San Diego Rep many years ago. So I'm very familiar with her work, and it really is such a joy to have you back here, Anna. And I will direct you to her bio to look at her other accolades. This play in particular has won a couple of very significant awards. It was a Susan Smith Blackburn Prize finalist, right? And also a Steinberg and American Theater Critics Association citation. I got that right. Yes. And just so you know, the sort of caliber we're talking about, the ACTA, I think is what it's called, was also won by Purpose, which won the Tony this year. So there you go. So very proud to have Anna with us. And we also have the amazing Maggie Burrows, who is a new addition to the Globe's artistic family. Please welcome Maggie. And now Maggie has directed also at Williamstown and Geffen Playhouse. Also, I just learned that you directed 2 musicals at the Muni, which is no joke. If you don't know, the Muni is in St. Louis and has an audience. 10th, yeah. I said something like, oh, it's 3,000. And they're like, no, it's 10,000. And I mean, it just, and that theater just won the Tony this year for the regional theater, yes. So, and Maggie, you're joining us. I think you're based in New York, right? Or are you from Los Angeles?
From Los Angeles.
Okay. All right. Well, we brought you back. So, I do just want to start off by asking, and this is really, as you all know, I like to ask questions that sort of feed my curiosity. Why theater? Because here's the thing. And Anna, I think now you're venturing into the world of film, but really your heart seems to be very much grounded in theater. So tell us about how you got into it and how you discovered you were a playwright.
So I wrote a lot of poetry as a kid, and poetry is really lonely. And I think I discovered theater and realized that it was much more social. Poetry is really satisfying because you can write a poem in an afternoon and feel like you've accomplished something, and that's great. But you do it on your own. And I feel like once I started sort of making the move into playwriting, which happened really after college, it sounds so crazy that I kind of tried playwriting on a whim in graduate school, by going to graduate school in playwriting, which is what I did. I really discovered that I loved it, and I what I tend to say, which is true, is that I felt like playwriting was much harder than poetry, and that I felt incredibly challenged by it and motivated to write better plays. I mean, it always felt like, it felt motivating to me, and also more fun than poetry.
So you never did theater as a child?
No, I was not like an actor. I wasn't one of those people who I really flamed out as an actor as of 6th grade. I didn't want to perform. I had to have a glass of wine just to be up here in front of you guys. No, I didn't come at it from that. I mean, I loved theater. I loved going
Yeah.
to theater. I've always loved. I loved going to see musicals. I grew up in New York, but no, I feel like I sort of came at it from storytelling, and my poetry was really narrative and had a lot of dialogue in it, and I sort of fell into it. I took a playwriting class my senior year in college, and the professor I had there also taught playwriting at NYU in the graduate program there, and kind of like pushed me in that direction.
I wonder who it was.
Arthur Kopit. Yeah. And so I both, to this day, kind of thank him for that and also curse him for that. No, it's really an interesting and at that time sort of unexpected turn my life took.
Well, lucky for us.
What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, Maggie.
I too was not such a sort of theater kid in my sort of middle school and high school days. I was a dancer, and I did that only because my older sister did it. You know, I sort of was like, oh, this is what she did, and so I'll try it. So I actually, I don't think I've ever said this to you. Maybe I did when we first met, but. I had an amazing teacher in high school who did these long form narrative dance concerts that were adaptations of, you know, sometimes it was she did Peter Pan one year, she did sort of like the history of America a different year. And my first year in the company, she did the Odyssey. And each of us was sort of tasked with one of the adventures that Odysseus went on to sort of three-dimensionalize, put into our bodies, choreograph. And when I started doing that, I was like, oh, I like this so much better than I like performing. And I just liked seeing the whole thing and understanding the shape and the rhythm and the audience's experience. And someone was like, you should assistant direct a play. So I assistant directed a production of Company with high schoolers in it. If you've never heard Ladies Who Lunch sung by a 16-year-old, I highly recommend it. And I just felt like I understood it, and that was what set me on my path.
I'm curious because, you know, obviously the two of you have a love for theater that was sort of nurtured through seeing theater, being a part of theater. What did your families think? Because, you know, I think my parents certainly love theater too, but they didn't think I was going to pursue a career in it. And what did your families think of it?
First? You want me to go first? You go first. I mean, I'm the child of two lawyers. I think just in general, having a kid going into the arts was a little daunting for them. I think theater was slightly preferable to poetry. So maybe that was, yeah. But no, I think it took them some, I mean, I don't think they wanted me to be a lawyer. I don't think they saw that for me, but I, you know, I think they saw that it was going to be a tricky path, and that the arts, you know, there wasn't any kind of straight line there in the way that, you know, maybe back then, maybe not now, becoming a lawyer was. So yeah, they were supportive, but I think sort of nervous about it.
Did you study poetry in undergrad?
I did, and I did a year of graduate school in poetry too.
Oh, wow.
Then did you switch?
Yeah.
Or you doubled?
No, I did a year of, I wrote poetry for a year in England, which I also think of as my master's in drinking. It was it was a very, I mean, really they do very little other than that over there, and then I went to NYU the next year and did dramatic writing.
Got it. And how about you, Maggie? What did your family think?
One of my parents is an artist, so that really helped. You know, sort of helped, or you know, tipped my hand. You know, who exactly knows? But it was a part of our family life. So it sort of was I was not the rebellious one in that sense. I was actually following, in some ways, the path. So yeah.
And your siblings too? Did they pursue it?
No.
So you're the sole artist.
Yes, just me. Yeah, no, yeah. So it only passed down to one of us, but yeah.
And did you go to undergrad for directing?
I went to undergrad. I was an English major.
Okay.
Because I wanted to just learn about other types of stories, all the types of stories that I could. And so I didn't go to conservatory school or anything like that. And then I did a lot of theater extracurricularly. So like there were small theaters around campus, and you would get together with some of your friends and say, this is what I want to do, and then we would all do it. And it was really like that's how most of that was generated and most of that practice and work happened. And then I too took one single playwriting class, but just to understand structure. I still am such a bad writer, so I don't. Just not how my brain is sort of wired. So that was I was following the path in my family.
Yeah. Well, this is a question for both of you. So, what has drawn you in terms of the kind of storytelling that you try to do to writing or to directing? Is there a particular aesthetic or a particular theater style that appealed to you as you were sort of creating and finding your own voice?
I mean, I think, unsurprisingly for me, the sort of more poetic playwrights were really formative, and I saw Sarah Ruhl's Eurydice in New York. It's now being revived in New York. I don't know what year the original was done. I think it might be a decade ago or 15. I don't know.
Just when she did when I was in college, 2008 maybe, something like that. I think.
Okay, so much more than a decade ago. So more like 20 years ago. And that, I don't know if you guys know that play, but it's a beautiful play. Also about this play is about grief and longing, and that play is as well, and uses an ancient Greek story and myth as its lens, and I was really inspired by what Sarah Ruhl was doing with language, and it made me feel like a play could be a poem, and I felt like that opened the door to people like me who wanted to fuse those kinds of worlds.
And yet your plays sort of travel through very different worlds, right? Because, I mean, certainly at least the plays that were done here, you had a play about tennis.
Yes, not all my plays are, ancient
and then
Greek.
You had a play about, the Hasidic
Jews.
family. And now this, which is also set in New York, but totally different topic. So there's clearly something. Do you just follow your curiosity? How does that work?
Yes. I mean, in each case, I felt with each of those plays, I mean, this play is a little bit of an exception because I was commissioned to write a particular thing. With Last Match and Wanderers was an Old Globe commission, and it was a wide open commission, so I could write about anything. I was with that play. I was interested in writing about arranged marriage. I'd always known that I wanted to write about that in some way. With Last Match, tennis. I was a tennis player growing up, recreationally, and that landscape was one I'd always wanted to touch on in some way. But with this play, I was approached to write about a 9/11 widow's experience, and so it grew from there. But the connection to the Odyssey was my addition and my way in.
And I will say, my experience as an audience member, as someone who also reads plays, that I find that your plays are poetry, are absolutely very much. The language has such a beautiful rhythm and quality, and it can really only be described as poetic because it's so moving. So obviously it's still very much a part of who you are as an artist.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Like, yes, that was planned on. Maggie, tell us about like what draws you to work. And I know, looking at your credits, you've done quite a wide range of story types, musicals, and so tell us a little bit about like why or what excites you about a story.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like something that feels like it has to be a play. That it couldn't just be a movie, it couldn't be a poem, it couldn't be a novel. It needs to be on stage with real bodies doing it in front of other real bodies, in real time. So you asked before why theater, and I sort of talked about my path into theater, but I think what I didn't say is there's so few things that we do as a community, that it's a communal experience, kind of like a ritual. I mean, now it used to be going to the movies. Now people watch movies, at home. So it feels like theater or live arts is sort of like one of the last rituals that we do. And one of the reasons I love the Muni is it's 10,000 seats and it's outdoor, and it happens in the summer, and it's been 100 years, and it like has this deeply civic function. It's in the middle of the park, and people come and they are together and they watch something. And so I think a lot about the civic function of theater, and then I start to get interested in like, okay, so what is it that we can give here that no one else can give? And I like things that use your imagination, and I like things that are theatrical, and I like things that don't try to like hit realism too hard. I can do and could do a play that feels like it's kind of like a kitchen sink. Everyone's moving in exactly real time and cutting and chopping and frying and whatever. And I have done those, and they can be really beautiful. But I really like when something allows you to acknowledge that what we're doing is there are bodies in space talking to you, having experiences, telling you something, and that the form can be a little slippery, right? The form can be a little... It can ask more of you, can ask you to use your imagination. And so I tend to be drawn to work that does that, which Anna's play does so beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Janeiad. And first of all, tell us about the title. What's it referring to?
So it's a little bit of a play on words. It's so the main character in the play is named Jane. And this is her story. So it's I'm taking it from sort of the Aeneid, right? Like, so I'm putting a J in front of the Aeneid and making it the Janeiad. So it's a way of giving Jane, who is, as I think most people here are coming to see it tonight. Is that right?
Or coming to see it at some point.
Or coming to see it at some point.
Yes.
So as you will hopefully see, she is engaged in a relationship with a character from an ancient Greek story, who is sort of usurping her own story. But hopefully she will reclaim her story. And I think the title sort of speaks to that she will take back her story, and the play sort of becomes her own. So it's her. We all have our own. We're all living our own epic, right? So that's the what's behind the title.
And you reference it is indeed about a widow of the 9/11 tragedy. 9/11 obviously looms very large for many of us, all of us, certainly those of us who were in New York. I was in New York at the time. But this play isn't just about that. And so it must have been, I mean, I'm assuming, somewhat intimidating to write a story with a backdrop sort of as significant and sort of universal in many ways as that. I mean, tell us about that experience.
I mean, I think, yes, but I couldn't think about it in that way. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it as a 9/11 play, or I just imagined it as one person's experience of that event, and I still think that it's not really about that. I think it is just about any kind of loss and what it takes to move on. So
Well, there's a real sense of an exploration of grief, and the word longing is so beautiful to me. It implies such humanity in it. There's something. It's something that we can all sort of tap into immediately once you hear the word and you know what that feels like. And it's also has some hope in it, right? It's not tragic. It's longing. It just implies that there's something to long for, and there's something very beautiful about that. So as artists, and this is for you too, Maggie, what's your way into something as complex and also as sort of all-encompassing as longing or grief? Like, what are the first things you do when you are about to work on a project about those themes?
I mean, I think, you think about the things in your life that have been close to that or have been that. The way you felt in those moments, the things you did and didn't understand, and you try to relate to it on an emotional level first, and then you really, when I got the play, I was really thinking about, I guess the character who she gets involved with.
I think we can talk about
Okay.
it.
Spoiler alert.
I don't know why I was being cagey about it.
It's Penelope, and I guess I was interested in the ways we as humans. There's something in the play about time, right? A lot of time passes in the play, and it's like when you are grieving, when you are in a moment of grief or acute longing, like your relationship to time completely changes, right? Like years become longer. You start to like feel kind of, you feel detached from how other people are living their lives and sort of the way time is passing for them. And so I was interested in this idea that like, what is it that draws her to Penelope to begin with? And in what ways, oftentimes the things we need to shed or the things we outgrow at one time did serve us. And so I was really interested in exploring, the ways in which, as Anna says, having someone else tell your story, having someone else catch you when you're falling, all the positive things about that, what it feels like to have that, airbag when you have a moment of collision, and then what happens when you kind of outgrow that airbag and when you're ready to stand on your own. And to me, that's what this play is really about, is it's about sort of like the love and respect for something that helped you in a moment, and also what it means and what it costs to let go of that thing when it's the right time or too late. But it's never too late because, you eventually want to be able to stand on your own. So that's sort of what I was thinking about, or that those were the things that were in my head really acutely as we led up to the process.
Yeah. I'm also struck by, in the character of Jane, I'm struck by, well, many things, but one of them is, and also Penelope and their engagement, their relationship. We rarely see, actually, in storytelling, two women engaging in an authentic way that does not have to do with a man. And so to have that presented to you in a theater, and certainly the theater here, which is so intimate, right? It's in the round. There's something very moving about that, and about exploring what it means to claim one's story, and that how sort of uniquely, well, it's very uniquely human to do that, to want to do that, but also how challenging that has been as a woman, historically. And perhaps that's just something that, as for me as a woman watching that, I'm experiencing it in real time, watching Penelope and Jane talk to each other and figure each other out. But I guess I'm curious, was that something that lived in your minds for both of you, when you were crafting this piece? Or was it sort of a, I don't know, happy accident of the chemistry of the two, or something that you discovered as you were building the show, this relationship and this dynamic exchange between these two very complex women?
I mean, I think that a little bit of both. I mean, I think that so when my way into the play, when I sort of got the assignment, which was to write about this a woman who was going to, I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but, like, meet her husband again 20 years later, 20 years after losing him. I immediately thought of Penelope, who sees Odysseus again. He returns after 20 years, after going to, fight the Trojan War. He takes 20 years to come back home. So I thought there was a sort of immediate parallel there. And that I felt was my way into this story. And I guess it took a little bit longer to, I think, to find the kind of the themes that you're talking about, Kim, like the ways in which I think Penelope stands for women who have been asked to wait for their husbands, to be faithful.
Passive.
To be passive, yeah, exactly. And Jane is sort of trying to uphold that, and thinks she needs her partner, and loves him. I mean, it's complicated, right? It's not a black and white story, but I think so. I think that the kind of notion of like what Penelope stands for came along the way, but the idea that there was a kind of parallel with this ancient Greek character who also waited. We've been sort of calling her like the patron saint of waiting. That's how we started talking about her in rehearsal. I mean, that was inspiring, and just sort of gave me a way into the story, that there could be this guide who kind of keeps Jane motivated to wait. I mean, I needed her to have something to do. There needed to be a reason for her to wait all these years. And there needs to be, like conflict, and she needs to have an agenda in the play and a reason to do that. So that gave me that reason, and it felt, motivated by history and the sense that this is what women across time have been asked to do. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
It does, yes. And Maggie, I'm sure, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I the play is mostly the two of them, and so you want to feel like, as Jane is trying to do this thing, to wait, she is feeling, I think, what anyone would feel, which is frustrated and unsure, and she's bargained, she's decided this is what she's going to do, and what if it doesn't pay off, and is this the right thing that she should be doing? And so in that way, I felt like, again, their relationship, what Penelope does do for her, how Penelope does comfort her, was really important. And I think that the complexity of their relationship is a result of the fact that it is, as Anna says, not black and white. It's not like Penelope, ensorcels her and then she like wakes up from a dream of having been, under her spell. It's much more active for Jane. It's much more, there are a lot of questions that emerge. There are ways they push each other's buttons. There are violations of the contract. There are all sorts of things that sort of challenge their pact. And so, that is for Jane, that is really the person that she has to talk to when she feels sadness, when she feels frustration, when she feels lost, when she feels confused, when she feels, hopeless, when she feels longing, when she feels any of that stuff. And so because Jane is such a complicated character, and because the issue that we're dealing with is so, hard and ever evolving and changing, and you can never quite put your finger on it, this complex relationship emerged from that.
It truly is. It's remarkable and beautiful and just so incredibly moving. And also, I hope this is not a spoiler, but this is a endorsement. Really satisfying, like really satisfying. And I think as someone who, I feel like I'm talking a lot about myself, but like as someone who has experienced grief, loss, as most of us, if not all of us, have experienced in some way, it's strange, right, to say that there could be some kind of satisfaction. I don't know how you do it. And I don't know how it's sort of magically crafted, but you two have done that. And it's just, it's such a journey. It really is. It's just such a journey watching the show.
Thanks, Kim.
I do want to open it up to questions, and so we do have a few more minutes. Please don't be shy. There are people coming through right now with microphones, so yes, raise your hands. This gentleman here, and then you afterwards.
Thank you. As you approached the project, I assume both of you had notions about it of your own. So when you started working together, were there any surprises?
I mean, I guess there are always surprises when you get into the room, because it's so intense. But I feel like I really am. I'm a little hard pressed to come up with the answer to that, because I honestly feel like Maggie has done such a good job of managing all of the things that have been thrown at us. I wish I had a good answer to that. Maybe you have a better answer. I mean, Maggie did say a few minutes ago that she's not a good writer, but I will say her instincts about the script are much better than she just led on. She is quite a good writer and dramaturg. So I mean, just today, I think, we've been making significant changes every day in the last week. And I think she had a sense that there were a couple extra lines in sort of the climax of the play that didn't need to be there, and she was like, we can hear them tonight, or we can cut them now, and we heard them a few times, and eventually, I thought maybe we should just cut them now. So I think her instincts about writing and script are, but that's not a surprise. So that's not really the answer to your question.
No, thank you. I think that also, we spent a lot of time together before we got into the room, and we talked about the play a lot. And so I learned a lot from Anna, what she was thinking and what she was wanting, and what she was interested in, because that's always, again, in the way that I'm not a writer, I want to say to her, what are you interested in? And then I can help, zhuzh it that direction, and help her pursue that direction. So I feel like that's really what it was. And the other thing about gearing up to work together is that it's not just us. We have 3 amazing actors, and it's the alchemy of all those people in the space and what everyone brings. And so Anna, this play, in its next production, or in our next production, or in a production in 10 years from now, it will be different, because the bodies in space will be different. And I really like to think about a play, once it is published, as being a blueprint. It's a blueprint for whoever those people are doing it right now. And so that's sort of how I think about it, is we're creating the blueprint for it, where there's room for other people to sort of fill it out. Did we answer your question at all?
It was a great answer. We had another question here.
So this one's for Anna. I heard you say that you needed to have a glass of wine before you came to talk with us. And I heard you say that you flamed out as an actress in 6th grade. So I'm just wondering, did you consider having a glass of wine back in 6th grade?
I did grow up in New York City, but even that would have been a little early, even for New York City. So no. But thank you for inquiring about my early rebellion.
Do we have any questions on this side of the room? No. Oh, okay. We'll go over there with Anne, and then we'll come to the aisle here.
No. We can, but you're not on mic.
Just project.
Speaking of the 3 amazing actors, can you talk about the casting process and who you ended up with and how wonderful they are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that hasn't been said on the stage tonight, which I feel like is really important to say, and I think anyone who has experienced grief will resonate with them, but laughter, humor, and grief intersect in all these ways, right? And so sometimes we're laughing at the strangest of times, because how else does anything come out? And so this play is also deeply funny. So it was important to us to find, we started with Jane, obviously it's her play. It was important for us to find an actor who had those kind of comedic chops, who was really specific and a real empath, and very smart, but also really, was funny. And so we were, I can remember the texts back and forth between the two of us when it was we had sent it to Michaela Watkins, who, if any of you watch Hacks, you've probably seen her on Hacks this season. And we were like, oh my God, she wants to have a conversation with us about this play. This is fucking amazing. Sorry. And she's just been so brilliant, and I think has really helped us sort of understand Jane. And so that was for that part. And then for the Penelope part, again, don't want to spoil too much, but the task of that role is major. You have to really be able to shapeshift into lots of different characters and be able to build entire worlds in 4 pages. And we had both been fans of Nadine Malouf for a long time, and she is absolutely a chameleon and is just so spectacular. And she has not built one character of Penelope; she has built 9 characters for this play. And so we're so lucky to have her. And then Ryan Vasquez is playing a part in
A part.
a part in the
A
show.
part.
And he has also just been so wonderful and specific and clear and supportive and hilarious and yeah, I mean, I think it was a
He's
dream
wonderful.
for us.
And Maggie, you've worked with him before. right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've worked with Ryan before only, yeah. And so yeah, that was the process. Once we had Michaela in place, we sort of thought who would be great to, support her, who would be a good counterpoint for her. Yeah, anything
No, it was a great process. Yeah.
We had one question on the aisle here. There's a mic coming your way.
My question is not about this play, but I just had a curiosity about the Muni. And can 10,000 people sit in quiet and watch a play?
It's a musical, which helps, right? So it's a musical, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, they, it is a little bit more like, okay, I went to Petco Park while I was here. I went and saw. It is a little bit more like sports, or it's like a hybrid of sports and theater. And I think as you get a little further back, you maybe are a little more like, the Hollywood Bowl or something, where or a Tanglewood, where people are out on the lawn and they're eating and drinking, but everyone is still watching, so it is kind of amazing.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I actually have one more question. One of the characteristics that we all share, and also with Danielle Mages-Amato, who dramaturged this piece beautifully back in the audience there, we're all moms. And as we know, that's when you become a mom, that just becomes such an indelible part of who we are. How has it been? And I know you, Maggie, your baby's very young. So I'm guessing this is one of your first experiences back on the job after having your child. As a theater working mom, how has it been?
Okay, well, it's been amazing. I mean, I brought Jane to the, her dad brought her
name's
here.
Jane?
Jane, her name is Jane. Isn't that wild? I know. I brought her here, which was true before I met Anna. I didn't rename her. No. I think I brought her here to sort of look around and see, and it was amazing to sort of see her crawling on the seats and, all of that. I think it's, character Jane is a mom. So I think it helped me understand some parts of her character. I think I also, it's amazing to be working on something in the room that you feel like is meaningful and about something, and as beautiful as Anna's play is and as beautiful as her work is in this, like it's amazing to know when you're coming or leaving your kid that you are going to work on something that is impactful, that is trying to really do something. And so then you go back and, she has no idea what I'm saying to her, but it's like, there is something about, feeling proud to go home and be like, I'm working on this very beautiful, complex, complicated, challenging play. And so it feels amazing, I think. And also I was like, I'm 15 minutes late because she's throwing up today. So it's both. I mean, it is this like, I guess there's some elements of it that feel like they're code switching, but then it also starts to feel like, wow, actually, the things I'm learning in each space do sort of apply in the other spaces. Anna's nodding because her kids are bigger and she's had more experience with this. One. She's one.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean it's sort of inseparable. Like I think it's incredible to watch Maggie in this space with her daughter. I was just saying to her today, watching her baby crawl amongst the chairs, that I was having deja vu, because when I was here doing Last Match, my older son was a baby and I was watching him do the same thing. And it's an incredible thing, and it's also a really hard thing to do theater and be a mother. I think, especially as a director, I think that's really a even much harder than being a playwright and a mother, because you have to be there the whole time. I can go in and out, you know.
I mean,
so-
I think it's also true that I'm not sure I could have worked at a better place being a new parent. So many of the people who work at the Old Globe have children and have families, which is very rare in the theater, for all the reasons Anna talked about. It's really hard. It's, the industry is struggling in so many ways, and the lifestyle, as it was originally imagined, does not leave room for that. But the Old Globe has, really taken an approach of, how can you be a theater artist and a person at the same time? How can you be a theater artist and a person with a family at the same time? And just to get technical, so you guys understand, most companies, you work 6 out of 7 days a week, and your day off is Monday. When are you seeing your kid? It's not so. In the Old Globe, really, you work 5 days a week out of the 7 days, so you have time to be a person. It used to be that you would work 10 hours out of 12 hours a day to do technical rehearsals. Here at the Old Globe, it's only 8 hours of 10. Like, that makes a big difference. I would go home during the break and put my daughter to sleep and then come back. So it really is about institutions also making it possible for parents to also be directors or writers or whatever it is. You can't, it is so much about the structure, support, and I also, I emailed Kim being like, any babysitters? Like, what am I going to do? I'm coming to a new, to a new place. And there are people on staff who had resources, and Allie helped me find the person who looked after Jane while I was here for 4 weeks. So that kind of support, like, it's not even like it would be harder. It's like it wouldn't be possible, right, without that support. Or I would have had to leave her at home for 5 weeks, which also I think would have been, its own sort of nightmare. So that's true.
Mine are older. They're 8 and 11. They're old. They're on a plane right now. Coming here.
Oh, that's also the hard part sometimes, yeah. Well, I'm going to just quote Anna, something that I know you've called the Old Globe, which is your artistic home. And we're so happy to be your home. And we're so happy that you are part of the artistic home. I hope this has become an artistic home for you. And so thank you for your time tonight. It really means a lot to us. And thank you, all of you, for coming and joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.